Rain tapped rhythmically against the cafe windows, painting the city streets with a shimmering, golden haze from the streetlights. Inside, the cozy warmth of the small cafe contrasted sharply with the cold world outside. Soft jazz floated from hidden speakers, blending with the quiet murmur of conversations and the clinking of ceramic cups. At a corner table near the window, Ethan Ward sat alone. A tall, impeccably dressed man in a charcoal suit, he was the picture of composure. But beneath the sharp lines of his tailored jacket and the glint of his designer watch, Ethan's chest tightened with an unfamiliar weight, loneliness. The constant hustle of board meetings, mergers, and media appearances had left him numb, and tonight, he simply wanted to disappear into the background. He stared at the window as the rain fell, his mind drifting. Every part of his life screamed success, yet nothing felt real. No joy, no warmth, just endless responsibility and the emptiness that came with being admired and envied in equal measure. That's when Lila, a young waitress in a faded apron, approached him. Her eyes were tired, but they sparkled with an unusual warmth. She held a small coffee pot and a tray with the gentle confidence of someone who had learned to handle life's pressures quietly. "Coffee refill, sir?" she asked, her voice soft and unassuming. Ethan looked up at her and felt a flicker of something he hadn't felt in years, calm. "Sure, thank you," he replied, his voice low and tired. She smiled politely, nodded, and walked away. He watched her go, fascinated by her simplicity. She didn't recognize him, didn't fawn over his status, didn't even glance at his watch. For the first time in years, he felt invisible in a way that was refreshing. Then, the moment shattered. The door opened, letting in a gust of wind and a flash of familiarity. Ethan's ex-fiancée, Claire, swept in with her new partner. Laughter followed them like a trail of perfume. The confident stride, the perfectly styled hair, the subtle smirk, everything about Claire reminded him of a life he had wanted but lost. Ethan's pulse spiked. He remained seated, rigid, as Claire's gaze landed on him. Her smile was coldly polite. "Ethan," she said, voice smooth. "Didn't expect to see you here." His jaw tightened, but he managed a measured nod. "Good evening, Claire." Her partner leaned closer, whispering with a sly smile, "Still working yourself to death, I see." No wonder she left. Ethan felt the words as a punch, his pride bristling. But before he could respond, Lila returned, holding the bill in her hand. She noticed his pale face, his clenched jaw, and the subtle tremor in his fingers. "Sir, are you okay?" she asked gently, placing the bill on the table. Ethan's mind raced. For a moment, he felt exposed, vulnerable, and then, almost impulsively, he did something he would never normally consider. He pulled a crisp $1,000 bill from his wallet and laid it across the table. "Please," he said quietly, looking at her, "just hold my hand." Lila froze, disbelief flickering across her features. "What?" He nodded, his dark eyes locking onto hers, pleading. "Just for a minute. Pretend we're together." She hesitated, the absurdity of the request battling with the unmistakable pain she saw in him. Slowly, she placed her hand in his. The warmth of her touch was soft, tentative, yet it grounded him instantly. Claire and her partner approached, clearly intending to assert dominance with their usual polished confidence. But Ethan's hand didn't move. "I'm not alone," he said calmly, a quiet steel beneath his words. Claire faltered, the smirk disappearing as the reality of the moment hit her. After an interminable pause, they walked away, muttering polite but empty goodbyes. Ethan and Lila remained, her hand in his, the noise of the cafe fading to a dull hum. "You don't have to take the money," he whispered, voice low and vulnerable. "I just needed someone to hold on to, for once." Lila shook her head, squeezing his hand gently. "It's okay, everyone needs someone sometimes." Ethan felt an unfamiliar warmth in his chest, gratitude, relief, maybe even hope. For the first time in years, he smiled genuinely. Not the polite, corporate mask smile, but a real, tired, human one. When the rain finally eased and Lila withdrew her hand, he felt a pang of loss. And yet, deep down, he knew that this brief connection, a single touch, a shared moment, was the start of something neither of them could have expected. Sometimes, it wasn't deals, power, or money that changed a life. Sometimes, it was simply holding someone's hand. The next morning, the city awoke to clear skies, the sunlight reflecting off wet streets. Lila Carter, still damp from yesterday's rain, walked briskly toward the small bakery she worked at before heading to her second job at the hospital. Her mind replayed the previous night endlessly, the stranger in the cafe, the sudden intimacy of holding his hand, and the way his eyes seemed to see through her. She shook her head, dismissing the thoughts. A waitress couldn't dream about CEOs. They lived in different worlds, one paved with gold and glass, the other with sweat and small victories. Yet, despite her reasoning, her heart betrayed her, skipping every time she thought about his quiet smile. Meanwhile, across the city, Ethan Ward sat in his sleek penthouse, staring out at the skyline with a rare absence of business distractions. The taste of rain lingered on his tongue, the echo of her hand in his sending shivers down his spine. He had never expected a simple act, asking a stranger to hold his hand, to unsettle him this way. He was a man accustomed to controlling everything, his company, his employees, even his public image. But Lila, she had disrupted all of that. She was not impressed by wealth or power. She didn't know who he was, and for some reason, that made her unforgettable. Later that day, fate intervened. Ethan had an urgent meeting near the hospital district, where Lila's second job took place. Arriving early, he decided to step inside the small cafe she worked at before her shift ended, just to see her again. The bell above the door jingled as he entered. Steam rose from the coffee machines, and the smell of baked bread and roasting beans wrapped the room in a comforting hug. There she was, Lila, wiping down a counter, her hair tied back in a loose ponytail, her uniform slightly rumpled but radiant in its simplicity. Ethan's pulse quickened. She looked up, her eyes widening when they met his. "You're back," she said cautiously, a faint blush coloring her cheeks. He smiled softly, stepping closer. "I had to make sure you didn't forget me after holding my hand." Lila laughed nervously. I could hardly forget. But why are you here?" "Business nearby," he replied smoothly, though the truth was far simpler. He couldn't stay away. "And I wanted to see if the world still makes room for kindness." Her brow furrowed in curiosity. "Kindness, yours," he said simply. "Yesterday, you reminded me that even in chaos, even in wealth, people like you exist. People who care without expecting anything. I can't explain why, but I needed to see you again." Lila's hand instinctively touched her chest. You don't even know me. I'm just a waitress." Ethan shook his head. "No, you're more than that. You're someone I need to know." By late afternoon, they were walking together through a quiet park near the cafe. Lila's shoes clicked on the wet pavement. Her simple flats were a stark contrast to his polished designer shoes, yet somehow, they matched in purpose, grounding, honest, and real. They talked about their lives, hers, filled with struggle and resilience, his, filled with luxury but loneliness. She told him about her mother, who had been ill for years, and her younger brother, who was the center of her world. He spoke sparingly about his empire, careful not to overwhelm her, but the glimpses he gave were enough to astound her. Then, with a nervous breath, he reached into his pocket. "I want to offer you something," he said quietly. He handed her a small envelope. Lila blinked. Inside was a $1,000 note, crisp and pristine. Her eyes widened. I can't take this," she whispered. Ethan's gaze softened. "It's not a handout. Think of it as a chance. A little help to make your life easier. No strings attached. Just hold my hand, figuratively or literally, when you need it." Tears welled in her eyes. "I don't know what to say." "You don't have to say anything," he replied. "Just let me do this for you. And in return, maybe let me be a part of your life." Lila hesitated, then took a deep breath and smiled. "Okay, but you have to promise me, you can't just disappear again." Ethan laughed softly. "I promise, I'm not going anywhere." And in that quiet park, under the amber glow of the setting sun, two worlds collided. A lonely CEO and a struggling waitress, united by a single hand held and a gesture that neither of them expected would change their lives forever. The morning sun filtered softly through the blinds of Lila's tiny apartment. The room smelled faintly of freshly brewed coffee and old textbooks stacked in the corner. For once, she didn't feel the weight of exhaustion pressing on her shoulders. Yesterday's walk with Ethan replayed in her mind, the warmth of his hand, the quiet sincerity in his voice, and the strange, unexpected comfort it brought her. She had never experienced attention like this. Not from anyone, certainly not from a man like Ethan, a CEO, a man who seemed untouchable and larger than life. Yet somehow, he didn't intimidate her. He made her feel safe. Dash dash dash. Across town, Ethan Ward was already at his office, the city sprawling beneath his floor-to-ceiling windows. But today, even the skyline seemed dim compared to the image of Lila in his mind. He thought about her laugh, her stubborn streak, and the way she refused to let her hardships define her. It was rare, almost revolutionary, in a world where people chased money and status above all else. He knew he couldn't stay on the sidelines any longer. Yesterday's gesture, the $1,000 and the hand-holding, was only the beginning. By mid-morning, he called his assistant. "Arrange for Miss Lila Carter to meet with our foundation manager," he instructed. Discreetly, "I want her to feel comfortable, not like a charity case." Dash dash dash. Later that afternoon, Lila found herself seated across from a sharply dressed woman in a polished office. A foundation meeting. She had no idea this would follow her simple cafe encounter. "Lila," the woman began warmly, "Mr. Ward has asked me to discuss a small grant and a career development program for you. He was impressed by your courage and your dedication, and he wants to help you pursue your dreams." Lila's eyes widened. "Me? But I'm just a waitress. I don't deserve this." The manager smiled gently. "It's not about deserving, it's about potential. Mr. Ward saw something in you. He believes in it, and in you." Dash dash dash. As she walked back home, clutching the paperwork, Lila couldn't stop smiling. For the first time in years, she felt hope creeping into her life. The fear of failure that had clung to her like a second skin was easing. She thought about Ethan, how he had seen her when no one else did, how he had made her feel worthy, not for her appearance, not for her circumstances, but for her heart and her resilience. That evening, he called. His voice was calm, yet carried a subtle warmth that made her pulse quicken. "How's my favorite nurse?" he asked. Lila laughed softly. "I'm not sure I'm your nurse, Mr. Ward." "You will be," he said, teasingly. "I have plans for you. Not just with the foundation, but with me." Her heart fluttered. "With you?" "Yes," he admitted, his voice steady but sincere. "I want to be part of your world, Lila. I don't expect anything from you, except the chance to prove that life can surprise you, sometimes in ways you never imagined." Dash dash dash. Over the next few weeks, their worlds intertwined. Ethan helped her family with bills that had been piling up for months, quietly ensuring her mother's medications were delivered and her younger brother could attend extra classes. He never boasted about it, he simply acted. Meanwhile, Lila's influence on Ethan became undeniable. She reminded him to laugh, to slow down, to see beyond balance sheets and stock prices. He found himself planning his days not just around business, but around small moments, a shared coffee, a short walk, a simple conversation. One evening, as they walked through the city park, the lights reflecting off the wet pavement, Lila stopped and looked at him. "I don't know how to say this, but you've changed my life, Ethan. Not because of money, or gifts, or anything like that, just, you seeing me." Ethan smiled, brushing a strand of wet hair from her face. "You've changed mine too," he admitted softly. "I used to think success was power, control, and wealth. Now I know it's these moments with someone who reminds you what really matters." For the first time in years, neither of them thought about titles, money, or status. There was only the connection between them, fragile but real, growing stronger with each shared smile, each gentle gesture. And so, what began with a simple hand held over a cafe table and $1,000 in a crumpled bill, blossomed into a bond neither had expected, one that would forever alter both their lives. Sometimes, love doesn't arrive in grand declarations. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, in a hand held at the right moment, in a smile that sees your soul, and in a stranger who believes in you when no one else does.